Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Dear students, hopefully you are well after the vacation. We have been carrying on our class for a couple of weeks. In those weeks, we are trying to cover your syllabus. In my last class, I discussed completing sentences. Today, I want to discuss on fill in the gaps using some phrase and words. Dear students, look at the board. Here, I use some phrase in the box. Now, I want to complete those three sentences using the phrase. Look at the very first sentence. Number A. You left this place. I want to write. It is high time. It is high time you left this place. Closing the window. Would you mind? The next sentence, he behaves as if. Here, three individual phrases I use in three sentences. This phrase are inserted in boxes. By using the phrase, a student should answer all the question, and a student is asked to use an individual phrase in an individual gaps. So, to do this grammar item, a student has to follow some technique. Those techniques are serially discussed here. I try to make it very easy to my students. Please carefully attend on my class. The very first phrase is was born. I know the root of the verb born. Born is the past form of bear. Bear. Born. Born. Was born is the passive mood of a sentence. I want to write a sentence. He was born in 1971. Here, in 1971 is an specific time. I want to write another sentence. Man is born free. Here is born. It's also related to passive voice. I want to write another sentence. We are born to suffer. In those three sentences, I use born, that means the past participle of bear, using auxiliary verb was, is and are. This is the basic use of was born. In this phrase, using this phrase, we can complete any sentences that indicates the indefinite time. The second clause is have to. Have to means a obligatory work that I should or you should do. An obligatory work that you should do. In Bangla, have to করতে হবে, গাইতে হবে. For example, I have to do it by 4 p.m. I have to do it. There is no alternative to do it by 4 p.m. There is no alternative to do it by 4 p.m. For this, I have to use have to. Another example, we had to fight in 1971. We had to fight. There is no obligatory to. We had to fight in 1971. Here is an example. He, I know he is the third person singular number. He has to collect his form. He has to collect his form to go over. In this sentence, have to, obligatory to, had to, obligatory to, and also has to, those she, have to, has to, had to, this modal auxiliary, they are used to do something that is obligatory. I want to write another words or another phrase. Would rather. In Bangla, চেয়ে বরং উচিত হবে. চেয়ে বরং উচিত হবে. To works on is superior than others. On is preferable than others. Such as I would rather die than beg. I would rather die than beg. In Bangla, আমার ভিক্ষা করার চেয়ে বরং মরে যাওয়া উচিত হবে. চেয়ে বরং উচিত হবে. Die is a word. Beg is also a word. This is not preferable, but this word is preferable than that. This word is preferable than that. I would rather play than sleep. This word is preferable than that. I want to translate the sentence into Bengali. I would rather die than beg. আমার ভিক্ষা করার চেয়ে বরং মরে যাওয়া উচিত হবে. I would rather play than sleep. আমার ঘুমানোর চেয়ে বরং খেলা করা উচিত হবে. Here, dear student, we see I use then and then. After then, I use the present form of the verb. In any sentence, if I use would rather, after would rather, this is a modal auxiliary. After using would rather, I have to use the verb is in present form. The next clause is had better. Had better in Bangla, borong, you had better, leave the place, had better. We generally use had better to complete a sentence. Then let alone. This is also preferable word. One work is done fruitfully than others. Here look at the sentence. I cannot sing, let alone dance in Bangla. নাচা তো দূরের কথা, আমি তো গান গাইতেই পারি না। I cannot sing, let alone dance. আমি নাচা দূরে থাক, গান গাইতেই পারি না। In another example, he cannot buy a mobile phone, let alone a laptop. সে ল্যাপটপ দূরে থাক, মোবাইল ফোনই কিনতে পারে না। In this sentence, I use or you should use let alone. On is impossible than others. To work is completely undone. On is comparatively more difficult than others. The next clause or next phrase is lest. Look at the sentence. Read attentively. Lest you should fail. Read attentively. Lest you should fail. In Bangla, মনোযোগ দিয়ে পড়ো, পাছে তুমি পরীক্ষায় ফেল করবে। Read attentively, lest you should fail. Here, lest it's a conjunction. In this sentence, I use after lest a subject and then I use should or might and the base form of the verb. Read attentively. Lest you should or you might fail. Or work fast. Lest you should miss the bus. Read attentively. Work fast and read attentively. Thus, the very sentence I use the imperative sentence in the first clause, and the second clause is the should clause. You should miss the bus, you should fail. Why? Because there is a list in individual sentence. So, if I see subject plus should plus base form of the verb and then object, before that there is a gap, I can easily use lest. In Bangla, lest pache bhoy bhoy. Another important phrase I write, would you mind? After that, note of interrogation. Would you mind is an interrogative phrase. Look at the sentence. Would you mind? Would you mind closing the door? Please look at the sentence, dear students. Would you mind? And after that, for the use of mind, I use the present participle of verb. Would you mind closing the door? If I find any gap after the present participle, I can use what is it like or would you mind. Here, the use of what is it like, the same use of what is it like and would you mind. Look at the sentence. What is it like playing in the rain? This is also an example of interrogative sentence. What is it like playing in the rain? What is it like closing the door? Or would you mind closing the door? In my question, at first I should try to find out the sentence which is in interrogative form. If I find any sentence in interrogative form, I very first try to find out the verb is in present participle form. If the verb is in present participle form, I always use would you mind or what is it like. Dear student, I now write another important phrase, as if or as though. Look at the things. Here is an example. He speaks as if he were a mat. He speaks in the present form. After that, I use subordinating conjunction as if. For the use of as if, this unreal past tense, I have to use the verb is in past form. If I find any sentence, the verb is in past form, and before that, I have to use as if subordinating conjunction. Or he speaks as if he knew everything. Look at the sentence. It speaks is the verb. The verb in present form. The second clause, the verb is in past form. for the use of present form and past form and the subordinating conjunction. The subordinating conjunction used here as is unreal past tense. So I have to use as if or as though. More example of as if, as though. He spoke. Dear student, look, in my previous sentence, I use speak or speaks. Speak or speaks is in present form. But in this sentence, I use spoke. For the use of spoke, it is the past form of the verb. He spoke as if or as though. He spoke as if he had known everything. In the sentence, we use the past participle form of the sentence, and before that, I use as if. Why? The sentence is in perfect condition because there is a verb is in past form. Here, as if or as though, use as unreal past.